Hey everyone, it's TK Friday. And boy, do I have a great show for you today. This one's called Setting Yourself Up for Masking Success. I'm kind of building up on the themes from the last two tutorials. We're going to really take it up a notch or two, or possibly maybe 3 notches. Let's get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It is TK Friday again, and I love TK Fridays, and I hope all of you out there do too. I want to thank everyone for all the kind comments that you gave me on the last tutorial. I really appreciate it. It really encourages me and helps me to keep on going, so I want to thank you very much. If you don't yet have the TK8 plugin for Photoshop and you really see the value in it, I don't know how I could live without it, to be honest with you. You can purchase it. I'll leave a link in the description below that'll take you right to Tony Kuiper's webpage, where you're going to find the TK8 Mult-Mask plugin for Photoshop, along with a bunch of great videos that Sean Bagshaw has made. Photoshop videos about the TK8 panel. I own all these videos and I highly recommend them. And also, I'm providing a promo code DK15. If you'll use that at checkout, you'll save 15% off your entire purchase, which is a nice savings. You know what? And it helps me out when you do that. It helps me to keep these tutorials coming your way, and I appreciate that. And I want to thank everyone who uses my affiliate links to purchase products. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without your support, so thank you very much. Let's get into this. I'm really excited, as I said earlier, about this tutorial. I was talking to Tony Kuiper the other day, and I was sharing with him some ideas I had for this week's TK Friday video, and it's concerning using the object selection tool in Photoshop, which is really great, and combining that with the TK8 Mult-Mask panel. We were talking on Skype, and I was able to show Tony my ideas, and Tony was able to share back with me some additional things I could do to make this process even better. This video is the result of a collaboration between Tony and myself. So sit back and relax. I think you're going to like what you learned today. Today's title, Setting Yourself Up for Masking Success. I'll be working with this stock image today. Now, I will link this also in the description below in case you want to download it and follow along with me. It's a great way of learning. Step number 1 for setting yourself up for success, especially if you're using a landscape photo with a sky. Click this icon right here and you will select the sky. Then click this button where you can save that as a channel. Give it a name. I'm going to call mine Sky and click OK. And now you'll see it's saved in channels. Now we can invert it, and that selects the foreground. And now we're going to go ahead and click this button and save that as a channel. We're going to call it foreground, and then we're going to click OK. And now you'll notice I have a sky and a foreground channel saved. Another very important step to setting yourself up for success is to really study the image and see what it needs. Now, I look at this image and I see the road looks a little too light. There's a fence here and it looks a little bit too light. And this is where the object selection tool comes in with Photoshop. Let me show you what I mean. But first off, I have a selection. As you can see, the TK panel lets me know I have a selection right here, these dashed lines, and also these colored, this colored outline around the CX panel here. That lets me know there's a selection. If I come to this icon right here, I can deselect that selection, and you notice all the selection indicators go away. Now, do you see this icon right here? This is the object selection tool, so click it, and you'll notice we have the object selection tool. Now, let's come up to the menu bar. And you'll notice, see where it says Object Finder, it's checked on. You can check this on or off. If it's checked on, Photoshop looks for objects in your image. When the Object Finder is checked on, you can use the Object Selection tool to hover over different parts of your image. It'll let you know there's an object selected. Notice this fence, see, it finds this as an object. It doesn't find the road. Now that's not a problem because the object selection tool can automatically find objects, or you can help it out to find the objects, and I'll show you what I mean. The first thing I want to do is select the road and save it as a channel. Now to do that, let's come back up to the menu panel up here. You see right here where it says Mode Rectangle. You can change that from a rectangle to a lasso tool. In this case, I think I want to use a lasso tool. So I'm going to click on lasso. And now I have a lasso tool. So what I'm going to do is make just like a loose selection. You don't have to be accurate here on this road. And check this out. This is really cool. Give it a second and it says, there's your road, Dave. Now I've selected the road. Now I want to save this out as a channel, but before I do that, I'm going to show you something that Tony pointed out to me, and I think you're going to like this. Right now, we just see marching ants, but if we want to see what this mask will actually look like, here is Tony's tip. If you come up here to this edit selection icon right here and you click it, you can see the mask. Now you'll notice something very interesting about this mask, okay? It has a very hard edge on it. Can you see that? Okay, it's not like a luminosity mask where everything feathers beautifully. So there's something we need to do here. This selection's not going to work out right, just the way it is. And the reason I know that, because I've experimented with it, and I know we need to feather that edge a little bit. But not a problem, because we're in the Edit Selection tool. And if you come to the Edit Selection tool, we have a bunch of things that we can do to alter this selection. But you notice this one right here, this little water drop, teardrop, whatever you want to call it. It's the blurring icon. Click it. And when you do, you can set up a blur radius. And I suggest 15 is generally going to be pretty good for most things. 10 to 15, 10 to 20 actually. Click OK. And now you'll notice I have a nice feathered edge here. Isn't that cool? So that's going to blend in really well. And also with this Edit Selection tool, I have a Save button right here. So I can click this, and now I can save this as road. Now remember, I'm going to click OK. Remember, we're setting ourselves up for masking success. So I'm starting out by making a bunch of masks. And believe me, this goes really quick. It takes a lot of time to explain it, but when you start doing this, you'll find it's going to really speed up your workflow. We're done with the Edit Selection tool, so let's just X out of it. And notice down here now we have sky, foreground, and road, which is nice. I'm going to go ahead and deselect this by clicking this icon. I just have one more mask to make, and that's the fence. So take the Object Selection tool, hover over the fence, and left click it with your mouse, and it selects the fence. Now let's take a look and see what this mask looks like. So let's come back here and click on this icon for Edit Selection. And we can see it looks pretty good. It looks like it missed a spot or two here, but we can fix that. Just come here and click the X key and we'll get out of the Edit Selection tool. Now we could come back in here with this Object Selection tool, or we could use Select and Mask, but I'm just going to use the Object Selection tool because I'm going to teach you how this tool works. If you hold your Shift key down, you can add to the selection. See, when I type my Shift key and hold it down, see that turns to a plus. And if you want to subtract from a selection, if you hold the Option key down, it'll become a minus. But I want to add to the selection, so I'm going to hold the Shift key down and just draw around here and it'll select that area, okay? Or I could change this from lasso to rectangle, which I think makes more sense. And see, it missed this little area right here. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and just click right here and it'll add that, okay? And anything else it missed? This little section right here it missed. I'm just going to go ahead and grab that. Let me get it one more time. Okay, I got it pretty well here. And now let's go back up. And I'm just looking real quick just to see if there's anything else missing. Oh, this right here. I missed this one right here. Okay, I got that. And I think I'm pretty good. So let's go back up and click here and see what we look like now. So now we have a lot more of the selection. And for the sake of the video, I can spend all day here and just make it perfect if I want to. But I think for all intents and purposes for the video, I think it's going to be just fine. Now, also, I want to point out here, this whole section of tools here can be used to edit your masks. Like these brush tools come in really handy, but any one of these tools are at our disposal. And here's something else we can do. You see these arrows here? If you click that, you can see the image itself. So you can compare what the image looks like to what your mask looks like. Because I'm looking right here. See this area right here? Let me click this and see, is there a space missing there? Let me check it one more time. Yeah, I think there is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this white brush tool. I'm going to make my brush smaller. I'm just using my left bracket key, and I have 100% opacity paint. And just for the heck of it, I'm just going to paint right there. Now let's go ahead and save out that selection. So click on this save icon, and let's call this fence. We'll click OK. And then let's just X out of this tool. And you'll notice now we have sky, foreground, road, and fence. And that's all the masks I need. Let me go ahead and deselect this selection. And just in case you're wondering, you might say, hey, why didn't you blur the edges of the fence? Well, in reality, those are nice hard edges and I don't really need to feather those. But on the road, the feathering really helps. Now, just to recap, we set ourselves up for masking success. We built our masks with the help of Photoshop's object selection tools and the wonderful tools we find in the TK8 Mult-Mask plugin for Photoshop. And now we're going to use those masks. What do you want to adjust first? Well, we have 4 different masks. Let's start out with the sky. So let's come up to the My Channels panel. And you'll notice in here we have all our masks. We have sky, foreground, road, and trees. Well, not trees, road and fence. But we'll start at the top and work our way down. But let's start out with sky. And we're going to start out easy. So let's click sky. And let's output that to one of my favorite new tools. Let's click on the color grading tool icon right here. And let's click on our midtone block. We'll adjust the midtones. So all I want to do here is darken the sky up just a little bit in the midtones. Just a wee little bit, and I may want to just add a little bit more warmth to the clouds. We can add a lot of warmth or just a little. I just want a tiny wee bit. It's a nice warm summer scene, so just a little bit of warmth to those clouds. And that's about all I want to do. Here, let's take a look. Here is the before, and here is the after. So I like that. I think it's going in the right direction. Now remember, we can always come back and adjust anything that we want because we're working with adjustment layers and they're non-destructive. That's the sky adjustment. Now let's make another adjustment. Let's go ahead and X out of the color grading tool and let's come back to My Channels. Now I want you to notice something interesting in My Channels. A new channel has appeared called Layer Mask. Now I didn't make this, or did I? It is this color grading layer mask right here. We're going to use this in an upcoming tutorial, but not today, but I just wanted to point that out. It has been added to the list. Anytime you have an active channel with a layer mask on it, it will appear here and it can be utilized, but not today. I've used the sky already and I made a foreground mask, but I got to tell you something. I'm not going to use this because I almost forgot. Tony taught me a really cool way of making a foreground mask, which is tailored specifically for this image. You don't always have to use this method, but in this image, it's really going to help because we have a road and a fence in this foreground. But stay with me. You're going to see how this all works very shortly. But let's do the road next. I'm just going to left click the road to select the road. And now we see our nice road with that nice feathered edge on it. Now follow very closely with me here. We're using some mask calculations. And mask calculations are not that hard to use. I always thought they were, but I learned they're really not that hard. And I'm going to teach you how easy they are to use, and you're going to come to love them too. I know that. Now let's go ahead and click on the mask calculator icon. And we can do 3 things to this mask. We can add to it, subtract from it, or intersect with it. And we're going to use something called intersect today. And you're going to see how powerful and easy this is to use. So let's click on this X button for intersect. And now let's X out of here. Now what I want you to do is come up to the luminosity mask icon and click it. What I want to do is intersect it with a midtones adjustment. Okay. So let's come here to midtones. We have our choice of midtones 1, midtones 2, midtones 3. Midtones are all the same adjustment. They're just in various degrees of lightness, okay? In other words, a lighter midtones mask will get you to the adjustment quicker, and you'll see that in a second here. So what's going to happen here, we're going to click equal. Now watch the magic happen as soon as I click equal. Are you ready for it? Equal. Look, I've intersected that midtones with my road. Is that cool or is that not cool? I'm voting on cool. How about you? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, what are we going to do with this? If you are saying, output it, Dave, output it to any of these outputs, I'm going to output it to my favorite color grade. So I'm going to click on color grade. Now, remember, I've picked a midtones 3 mask. So that mask is going to control my adjustment here. So let's click on the midtone block and let's darken that road up and drag it to the left. And notice how it darkens up rather nicely, okay? But that feathered edge, if I zoom in here, you can really see how that feathered edge is letting that look really nice. We're not seeing any weird artifacts here. So that's very important. Let me go ahead here and click to go to full screen again. Now, I'm going to add a little bit more warmth to that by pulling this block up into the yellows a little bit, just to warm it up a little bit. Maybe even take it into the red tones. Just a wee bit right about there. I think looks pretty good. Now remember, we can always come back and alter, but here is the before and here is after. Isn't that cool? You got to be excited. As a side note, I just want to point out when I used Midtones 3, this adjustment became much more aggressive because that mask was lighter. Now let's turn our attention to the fence. Let's X out of the color grade tool and go back to my channels. Remember, we set ourselves up for success. We have all these channels built. Now we go to fence. Click on fence. We're going to do another mask calculation. So let's click on the mask calculator. What do you think I'm going to use? I'm hearing intersect out there. I'm going to click on intersect. X out of here. Let's go back to the luminosity icon, which opens up our luminosity mask. We're going to use, again, let's go ahead and use Midtones 3. Let's go equal. And now check it out. We have a fence intersected with Midtones 3. Are you excited? I know you are. And let's click on the color grade tool again. And simply, let's darken it up. You know, we can lighten it. Nothing happened. Did you see that? Because look, you always, and I'm glad I made that mistake, and I do this all the time. I forget to click the tone I want. Now remember, you have shadows, midtones, and highlights. But I generally start out with midtones. And I'm using a Midtones Mask, by the way. So let me click this. And now, let me try that again. I can lighten that fence. I don't want it lightened. I want to darken it. So let's darken it down. Maybe somewhere around there. And do you want to warm it up? I think so. Let's warm it up a little bit. Maybe somewhere right around in there. And let's take a look. Here is the before and here is the after. Isn't that cool? We have a road adjusted perfectly, a fence adjusted perfectly. And again, we can come back and alter them later. Next is Tony's tip on how to do this foreground selection. I don't want to use the fence and or the road, Dave. I don't want to use the fence either, but I just want to adjust the foreground, these background hills and these green grasses here. How are we going to do it? You're going to find out right now. I'll get rid of this color grading tool by clicking X. And let's come to color masks. Then go ahead and click this icon. A color picker tool comes up. And let's just pick some green that represents these grasses right here and click OK. And there you can see here is our mask. Now, I can see some of the road in here and then a little bit of the fences in here. Now, I'm using this particular mask because it's going to select the edge of the road very well. Because remember, I made that road mask and I had to put a bit of a blur on it. Well, I'm not going to use that road mask. I'm just going to use this green mask selection for the edge here because it's going to give us a real nice edge definition. Now, we can go ahead and lighten this up. And as I do, you can see we have some sky selected. We have a lot of the road selected here, and we have some of the fence here. We can remove the fence with the mask calculation, but for the road, we're going to use a paintbrush to get rid of that. And we can come right here and click on the black brush. And with a full 100% opacity, I'm just going to paint off these areas that I don't want. Staying away from the edge there, okay? Because I want the actual mask itself to work out that edge just the way it should be. So just like so, that'll do it. Now what I want to do is get a mask calculation, and I want to subtract. Let's X out of here. I'm going to subtract. Let's go back to my channels. Let's subtract out the sky. Click equals. The sky is gone. Now we got to get rid of the fence. So how could I do that? Well, if you're thinking, come back to mask calculator, you're right. And now minus, let's get out of here. Let's go back to my channels. And if you're thinking minus out the fence, you're correct. Then just click equal. And now we have the fence and the sky out, and I painted out the road. Now my grass area is still a little bit too light. So what I'll do is get this levels adjustment, click on it, and I'm going to drag this highlight slider to the left a good bit. And I'm going to really lighten up that selection like that. Now I'm going to take this mid-tone slider and readjust here a little bit. Okay, something like that, and maybe make it a little bit lighter. I want to maintain texture, and I think I'm really good right there. Now I can see I have a little bit of the road that I have to fix. So let me get a black brush again, and I'll make it a little bit larger. And let me just clean that up just a little wee bit. Something like that, I think, should do the trick. Now we need to output our mask. Let's click on the color grade adjustment tool again. And let's click on midtones. Let's lighten up our midtones. And look how it's just hitting those grasses beautifully. And while we're at it, let's make our greens a little more vibrant. Just pull this midtone slider up into the greens, maybe a little more yellow right there. And let's take a look. Here is the before and here is after. But see that edge along the road looks really nice. And that's thanks to that color mask, that green color mask. And then we were able to subtract out the fence and the sky. There's one final thing I want to do, and stick with me here because you're going to learn something. Let's get rid of this properties panel. I want to bring some detail to the road and the fence. So what I'm going to do is grab a clarity action, which is found right here inside the actions. And I'm just going to take the default radius of 10 and click OK. Now I've added detail to the entire image, but I only want it on the fence and the road. So what are we going to do? Well, let's think about this. Let's X out of the color grading tool. Let us go up to My Channels and let us click on the road because we know we want to add it to the road. And there's the road with a nice feathered edge on it. And we also want to add it to the fence. So let's come to the mask calculator. Let's click Add. And now X out of here, go back to My Channels. And now we'll click on Fence, click Equal. And now we have the road and the fence. And now let's just output it to that clarity layer by clicking this icon right here. And just like that, check it out. Here's the before and here's the after, only on the fence and the road, thanks to mask calculations and the clarity action. Pretty cool, isn't it? Let's take a look at the overall before and after. Here is the before and here is the after. Well, there it is, everyone. We set ourselves up for masking success by making a bunch of masks at the beginning, and then we can just roll out and utilize those masks one by one. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today. If you did, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And also, let me know what you think of this tutorial. I would really appreciate to hear your comments. If you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing.